G'day friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is James. Today we're going to do another video finishing up my virtual VV4 journals, and I'm also going to be back in the PIP action having a bit of a chat with you today. I've got my Duffy hat on. There's a pimple up here I'm trying to disguise, so that's why the extra costuming today. I'm in my caveman era right now. Everything's a mess, I'm a mess. Let this be a reflection of what I feel inside. Okay, let's get into it. I want to talk to you today about kind of a topic that I think is relevant to everyone at some point, and that is self-doubt. That kind of inner saboteur, as RuPaul likes to call it. The reason I'm bringing it up right now, it's so odd to me, but I get really confident before I start things, and then once they're all finished, when I go back and review the process, some of the doubt creeps in there. So now that I've finished my virtual VV4, I'm going through all the journals, I'm finishing them, I'm reflecting on that process, because I think it's really important to reflect, of course, so you can learn from anything you'd want to change. And because we redo these experiences just with different themes, I like to think about what I might want to change up for next time. So it's a really kind of deconstructive process, and it's really intense, and sometimes the feelings can get a little bit out of hand. And then as such, the doubt creeps in. Should I do that again? Should I even try? Why would I do that? I think it's natural for anyone. I will say though, before we get started, I'm going to try and speak from this from my own perspective. My own perspective is very skewed, very warped. So I don't know how helpful this is going to be. Hopefully you can glean from it whatever is on your heart to take from this today. Also, take my opinion with a grain of salt. I am literally no one and I know nothing. So the experience that I have comes from I've loved art all my life. I've been a professional dancer, and I did art as a hobby on the side. I found art journaling after a car accident in 2015, and I've been doing that ever since, walking through any open door to any open opportunity, and then suddenly ended up with this career in art journaling and teaching and content creation, as well as product design. So a bit of a mixed bag there. I would also just point out, this is my personal passion. It is also my business. Those two can't clash for me in my real life. However, in a lot of the theory that I'm going to talk about, they do kind of mingle. They're intertwined, obviously, but I do try to keep them compartmentalized as best I can. So hopefully I won't be talking too much from the business side of it, unless you kind of work in this space as well, and then hopefully you can take something from there as well. I tend to be very ruthless with the business side of it though. Not with other people, with myself. I don't take any of my own drama. I don't take any of my own lies and excuses. So if that's where I end up speaking from, also apologies for how harsh that sounds. It works for me, so I'm going to keep doing it. But the thing I want to talk about today is self-doubt. So I'm going to talk about my own self-doubt and kind of my journey with that, my process with that. So hopefully that's what you're here to. I mean, no one turned up to listen to that today, but hopefully you enjoy it. If you do enjoy it, let's get into it. Self-doubt for me is that little voice that says, you can't do this, or you shouldn't do this. And actually, no, conscience is the one that says you shouldn't do this. Self-doubt is the one that just says you can't do it. And you grow up with that, oh, you shouldn't say you can't do something, like you don't know until you've tried. Yes, all of those things are great. Unfortunately, I found that applying solutions to self-doubt is not quick. It's not one of those like, I can do it today. There is always a step you can take today, I do believe that, but it's not something you can fix today. I don't know if it's something you can ever fix, because, doubt is also a part of one of those things I think we experience, much like, our conscience brings up some issues we should probably address in that moment, or conviction. If you're someone of faith, you know that you have that conviction that you should address. Sometimes doubt brings up things you should address, and so I don't think you should ever try to get rid of it fully. We're just trying to get rid of the part where the doubt stops you from doing something, where it becomes the roadblock, not just the kind of little ping that you need to address before you start something. So that's my own theory on that. The thing that I found most irritating about self-doubt wasn't the feelings that I got from it, was the fact that I could be stopped by it. So that's kind of also a bit of context for you. I would say it pops up a lot, like I said, when I'm going through this process of like nowadays. It comes back up a lot once I've finished projects, a little bit before when I start. And a lot of it is doubt as far as like business decisions go, only because those successes in business can be a lot more quantifiable, numbers and money, right? So you're often basing decisions off of data that you've collected from before. But personally, the doubt kind of creeps in usually, typically, with in regards to skill. Like, is there a skill that I need that I don't have? Am I trying to do something that I don't think I can do? Am I giving myself a project that I think might be too much for me? That's when all the self-doubt comes in. And the reason I say that it's kind of like those other things like conviction and conscience and stuff is because I think that's the little sign to address whatever that is right then and there. Are you willing to be honest with those answers though? Because this is where I think for the longest time I just wasn't willing to be honest about it. There are also reasons why people might not want to be honest about it, and it's usually because it sucks. The reality of what you're trying to be honest about paints you in a bad light, makes you feel bad about yourself. I'll be completely honest, years and years and years ago, the reason I would do that was through ego. There was a part of my ego that I just hadn't killed off yet, and it was the one telling me, like, you should be good at that, and if people don't think you're good at that, then, they're going to let you know, and you don't want to be perceived as being bad at it, do you? And so all of those things would kind of creep up in that moment, and I have since lost all the will to care. I don't care if people see that I can't do something. Obviously, if I'm selling the skill, I would be a little bit more aware of that. Like if I'm selling in a workshop, I would definitely take the time to learn it. But for the most part, I don't really care if I attempt to draw hands today and people say, oh, you can't draw hands, because I already know that about myself. I have been willing to let all that ego go. And it came through the process of realizing that art for me wasn't about being the best most skilled artist with the best memory ever, but rather just doing art that I enjoyed, and that's a huge shift that I had that changed kind of a lot. So it doesn't bother me anymore if people see that I can't draw hands, because I know that. However, if there are things in your way that make you not want to be honest with yourself, you're really going to have a hard time trying to fix any of this, because it does come down to a level of honesty that makes us a touch uncomfortable. For certain reasons, right? So I have to tell myself at that point, what is the doubt saying? What is it trying to tell me I can't do? It's usually obvious, because like you're trying to do one specific thing and then it pops up. I think at that point what helped me the most was to change my expectation. Whenever I started doubting something, it wasn't a sign to expect to do the worst. It was a sign to expect that I'm about to attempt something. I'm going to learn where my deficiencies are. I'm not going to attempt it thinking that I'm going to get the best result in the world, that it's going to be perfect, that it's going to be, museum worthy, that if I was going to attempt a realistic, photorealistic portrait today, I'm not going to sit down and say, this is going to be amazing, I'm going to expect great things. Because I already know the doubt will creep in. I already know there are some things here that I just don't really know how to do. I haven't practiced them. Maybe I've done them once or twice before and I just don't feel confident at it. All of those things aren't bad things. They are just truths. Those truths can change over time. You can apply growth to a certain area, and your truth can be, I have had a lot of practice with it. It can also be, I've had a lot of practice with it and I never got any better at it. These are all truths, but it does require us to be a touch vulnerable enough to be able to say, that is what's happening here. So, I shift my expectations. That's the way I deal with it. For me, the stakes aren't that high. It doesn't really matter if I attempt it. At least I'm not stopping. I would need to get to the point where I'm attempting it, because then I have an opportunity to learn from that. I might get to a point where I actually do it and I realize, oh, I did manage to get, almost all of the way there. I've just kind of struggled on X, Y, and Z areas. That's why I say critiquing your own work isn't bad either, because you do kind of need that to know where you're going. Bashing yourself is kind of pointless, but unless you're someone that kind of thrives off that negative interaction with yourself, if that's your motivator. I know sometimes for me it's been very motivating to kind of like guilt myself into doing things, but that's another story. In any case, if you can just critique it, you have an opportunity to learn what you need to do to be able to have a better success next time. Success is relative. A good time is relative. All of these things are really relative, but to my own experience, I wanted to get better at it just so that I could achieve the results that I desired. One other interesting thing was that over time, my perspective about art changed. I used to do it because I enjoyed it, I was good at it, and I felt like it was a skill that I enjoyed working on. But there were many, many times when I just didn't enjoy it that much. Specifically, when I would do sketches and I would really love them, and then I would ink them, every time I would ink them, it would become really annoying and frustrating because I'd think, am I just not good at art? Like, what's going on here? How did I really like the sketch and then I didn't like the way that looks now? Like, why does that look different? Didn't realize it at first, but over years and through many, many different videos I watched and different artists sharing their takes, I then realized that I was enjoying the process and then I was doing one thing that I just didn't really enjoy that much. I didn't really enjoy the time it took to ink everything. I didn't enjoy that my hand has like a little shake to it and that I couldn't make as precise lines as I wanted to. I didn't practice that enough to do that. I kind of had an ego at that point that like, well, if I can do a great sketch, I can ink the whole thing really well too, which wasn't really helping because I wasn't able to address my actual problem was inking it well. So for a long time I didn't really realize that it was just that I loved the sketch. I loved the sketch and I was more than happy to move on from the sketch. For some reason though, I had believed that my sketches weren't finished until they were inked and then I would erase all the lines away. Like that was the illustration. I couldn't show something that was in a state of half finished because sketches are just half finished. They're not finished. That was just a random, like, who taught me that? I don't believe that now. I believe that a sketch can be the finished piece. I believe a sketch can be the destination. I don't believe that. Like, why did I have that in my head? This whole, and that I realized that a few years ago, but even now, this stream of consciousness journaling that I'm doing, just the idea that all these thoughts in my head that bubble up, some of them have been there for so long, I don't know who put them in there, and I've just been existing in life with those, not realizing that I don't even believe it. I don't care for it. It is actually stopping me from getting to the next thing that I want to do. So, sometimes it's important just to contextualize that way because a lot of the decisions I make now based off of a few of these pivotal moments where I realized art was there for me to have fun with, where I realized that the business side of art and my personal passion side of art need to be incredibly segregated so that I don't lose the passion or I don't overwhelm the passion with the desire to pay my bills, and I don't, lose the will to pay my bills because I'm too happy doing all the passion of it to find a good balance. There were pivotal moments that now shape how I see this. And there is also a part of how I operate in life as a regular human being that doesn't even have anything to do with art journaling that also shapes how I see this as a problem to fix. So, we're at the point where the self-doubt's creeped in. I've been honest enough with myself to say I kind of lack a few skills in this area, but I don't want to let it stop me because that to me would be the failure of just not starting, right? So how can I have results if I don't start? I want to start. I've shifted my expectations from something that I know will set me up for probable failure. If I am setting my expectations to the most likely opportunity to fail, that in itself is just going to ruin the whole experience. So if you can get to a place where your expectations are almost set at nothing or the bar is very low, you will constantly be impressed with yourself. It's a really great feeling. I know sometimes you can't help but wish to do better. That's great too. You can expect to do one thing and then hope for something better to happen. At least the hope can be met with, it didn't happen this time. The expectation, that to me feels like a harder fall because the expectation is what we're going to judge it against. We're not going to judge our success against the hope. We're going to judge it against the expectation, for me. So I know this all sounds very linear. I'm sorry, this is who I am. This is me. Whoa. Okay, so I've gone on to do the thing, and then I assess it. Did it work? Did it happen? A lot of the time I find that I've set realistic expectations, so I generally meet my goals. Can I tell you how motivating that is to constantly reach your goals? And yes, there may be small goals. It might be like clean up your desk today. Those are motivating. When you have motivation, you are likely to do it again. Doing it again becomes the repetition, becomes the practice. And so I used to have this idea in my head that like, if I've got to be better at something, I've got to practice it. And it was almost this dread. I've got to, because the doubt creeps in because you've got a lack of skill. So you're like, well, I'll just be confident if I practice 100 times a day. And then you kind of dread this setup. You're like, oh, that's a lot. I don't know. I'll try. And then you do it, and then you're bored with it, or the exercises are boring. You don't really want to be doing loops with a brush pen all day. Some people do. That's fine. Me? No, I don't want it. So I didn't want to do that. I needed to trick my brain in a way to enjoy the fact that I was practicing and not even really know that. And this is a part of like another area of my life where I realized the business had to be separate from the passion, but what helped both was managing myself, managing my abilities, managing what I knew I could do, how much time I had to do it, the amount of effort I was willing to exert on it. That's a huge difference as well. Can I just say one thing that may not sound related, but please try not to get your, how do I say this? Try not to get too much of your motivation from other people online. It is good. I think it's really good. It's stimulating, but your actual motivation to do something is going to need to come from yourself. You're going to need to set it up in a way that actually feels motivating for you once the video stops. I can't even, I'm wishful thinking here, but if you should be motivated by this in any way, this will only take you so far, especially 20 minutes after this video's ended. Maybe every part of motivation that you think you have right now could be gone. You need to be able to set that up in a really real way for yourself that cycles through your life beyond outside people trying to motivate you. Being a self-starter, being self-motivated is really the only sustainable way to move forward, with a lot of this growth. So I just have to say it because I used to try and glean a lot from others and try and fill my cup up that way. It just didn't work. I would finally get to the point where I was like, okay, well now I'll do the practice. And then I would be 10 minutes into it thinking, I don't want to do this. The motivation came from me by shifting my entire process to focus on what I enjoyed. When I enjoyed it, I wanted to do it again. If you like the taste of the milkshake, you'll buy it again. So if you want to do, I'm getting so aggressive. If you enjoy the art journaling, you'll want to do it again. If you enjoy, planning your days and putting your stickers on your page, you want to do it again. When you want to do it again, you will. And you will practice. You will repeat the process. You will inevitably be practicing. So I try to set up these kind of like inevitables in my process. A lot of it really does have to do with joy. I like to find what makes me the most happy, how I can capitalize off of that, how I can extend that and ride that wave for as long as I can. And it really is, it's all become about the joy in my head. What am I going to enjoy today? So that is a huge part of the process because, with the doubt comes, the honesty, and the only real way to kind of start to set back those feelings of doubt is to address them in some way. Sometimes you can address them in ways that because I had this doubt all the time when I would draw hands. Let me just say, some of those self-doubt things you're having, we can get rid of today because some of them you actually just don't need. They're just popping up because you have an idea that you've kind of grown out of. But I used to think you had to draw hands because why wouldn't you? If you're drawing a whole person, why wouldn't you draw their hands? I hated drawing hands. I really didn't like it. Every time I would try to practice it, they would teach me way too much, like the sinew on the bone connected to the knuckle. Like, I'm not ever going to draw anatomy textbooks. Don't say it ever, but, I'm not going to do that. So why did I need to try and learn all of that? Like, that was boring to me. Also, some other books that I would look at had just pictures of hands or like 1 to 2 steps where they'd go, draw a square, and then suddenly it was this perfectly rendered hand. Like they were missing a bunch of steps. I couldn't find one that kind of blended how much effort I was willing to give to do this and to get the results that I wanted. So in essence, I actually just thought, well, what if I just don't draw them? Or what if I hide them? Because then you could think they have hands, but then they don't. So I would put hands in pockets, I'd put hands behind the back, I'd put hands behind the head. I would never let you see the hands that I was drawing. Some people do that, and it's not because, I don't know how to say this. I personally did it because I just didn't want to draw the hands. So this little self-doubt that kept creeping up, like, you can't draw hands, you can't draw hands. When I finally addressed the reality of it and was like, yeah, I know I can't, but I also don't want to, then that little voice was like, oh, well, you can't. And I said, yeah, I know, and I don't want to, so I'm not going to. Well, you can't draw them. Yes, I know. Like, the voice had nothing to feed off of. I had no want for that. So it suddenly didn't creep up anymore. Over years, out of curiosity to see if I could grow, the voice came back to kind of say like, well, you still can't draw hands. And then I would apply some new approaches to it, because with skills I built in the years, after that, I did find a way that I enjoy drawing hands. So I can't even say like all of these things are going to matter today. Let them matter when they matter. If you don't really need to be doing something today, if you don't need to be good at watercolor today, and just tell your brain that. Like, it doesn't matter. You just might be watching a lot of artists use a lot of watercolor. You might like all their results, but you just personally don't like the mess of getting all the paints out. I used to hate getting paints out. So just let that be the response to that voice and see what happens next. Because if you don't need to address it, if you don't need it, then you can move on from it. And again, we'll have, in my opinion, fixed what the real problem is there, and that's that doubt stopping you from doing something. So, we live in social media age. There's always something to try. I think even if you silence all the doubt in your head and then you feel a little blank, go and turn on a video. I have a page in 10 videos you can watch just to get you started with something. There's always something to start with, and just keep revisiting that process. Keep looking at it and saying, did I like that? Did I like this? Did I like that pen I used? Did I not like that? And don't feel afraid to say you don't like something. Please also don't try and tell the creators that you didn't like it. There's really not a lot of need for that. I know that happens sometimes, and I question where it comes from, because it just seems a little bizarre. I think some people are just kind of expressing this part of like, oh, I tried it and I didn't like it. Yay, I can move on. It's a weird thing to hear from a creative perspective. I'm not going to judge it too harshly, but just in case, please don't think that that's what I'm telling you to do. But if you personally don't like something, just leave it. I say this a lot in my workshops, that if there is something that you really enjoyed from week 1 and we're on week 3, bring it back. Don't leave it in week 1. Like, you can keep bringing that in as much as you want. I'm going to, as the teacher, do all of it, but even I will prefer something, or I might bring something back in. I'm kind of wild. My mood changes like on the hour. I could be doing Mary Blair in the morning, Tim Burton at night. I don't really care. And that is because the more I've looked into my process, the more I've looked into all the things that make me happy and that I enjoy, it has become an endless buffet of choices for me. It's to the point where there's always something to do or something to try and enjoy, that little voice in my head that says you can't do something, it literally only shows up if there's a skill that I can't do, or that there's like, it's more business side, like there's like a money thing that I should try and figure out, or pricing and stuff like that. Those are the times when it comes up. Really kind of trivial stuff that doesn't even make me feel that bad. But the part where it comes up in art journaling for me now is typically where there's a skill, and I have absolutely no problem with saying, yeah, I can't do that. Do I care to work on it? No. Do I care to work on it? Yes. If I care to work on it, then I'll do it, and if I don't, I won't. It really just comes down to how honest you're willing to be in that process, and vulnerable. It takes a little bit of vulnerability to be that honest with yourself, because it can feel bad. Some people don't want their truth to be what their truth is, and I understand that. My response will always be, nothing will change unless you can get a hold of that, but that's up to you. Obviously, everyone has their own choice. And yeah, I don't think I have much more to share beyond that. I do have kind of like a random life thing that I felt like was relevant. I'm not quite sure how it fits in, so I'll let you pull the pieces together if they fit. You can, even in all of this, still undermine your ability to be successful. Steve and I talk about this just in general, like in life, and if I can make a really simplistic point or simplistic view of it, it's like saying I want to go on a diet. I want to lose weight. So my goal is to lose weight. Is there anything I'm doing that's undermining my ability to be able to do that? Like, it's undercutting that. It's actually taking me off the course to getting to that goal. And how severe is that? Like, is it really damaging my chances, or is it just like slightly getting in there? Because there can be different degrees of how much you're undermining your abilities. If I go eat McDonald's every day, I'm just outright undermining my ability to do that, and I have to be honest with myself about it. There's really no point to lying about it. You're just going to create problems in different ways. There's nothing wrong with the honesty. I always say the truth can be dealt with. So if you need to be that honest with yourself to be able to deal with it, please do it. Not calling anybody out. This is literally what I tell myself. But if you need to say, I am undermining my ability to fix this because I just don't want to do that. You have to address those things and accept that if you are going to continue to undermine it, you won't see the results that you want. Maybe by luck or by chance you could, but it's not going to be a sustainable kind of journey into success that way. So, is there anything you're doing to undermine your ability to succeed in that? For some people, it's I shouldn't say some people. I should just call myself out. The thing that would undermine my ability to succeed used to be a fear that I would be financially unstable, that would push me to create schedules and kind of like content schedules that were unrealistic and like way too overboard. And it was undermining my ability to set up a rhythm and a pattern, a balance that was healthy for me. As a result, I gained a lot of weight. I couldn't manage the time I would need to work with the time I would need to live. And I set up a really unhealthy work schedule. I had a lot of grace for myself through that because it is really hard to own your business. I was also immigrating to a different country. I had lost a career that I really loved, and I was just going into a new career. So I have all the reasons where I had grace for myself. But at the end of the day, when I really just took all the feelings out of it and said, I have a goal here. I want to set up a sustainable business that I can live by, but I can also let it go, once the day is over, once the business day is over. And that took years to address because there were many, many ways I was undercutting myself and undermining my ability to succeed at that. First and foremost was I just gave myself schedules I burnt out with, like over and over and over again, just because I feared that if I didn't, I wouldn't make enough money to pay my bills. Is that a noble way to do it? Sure. I mean, like you want to pay your bills. That also not paying my bills and having financial collapse and ruin would undermine my ability to set up that goal, right? So it's a tricky blend. Sometimes there aren't really clear, healthy, solid answers. Sometimes we take paths that are a little unstable. So don't beat yourself up too much about it. I would always encourage you to have grace for the reality of your situation. But then also honesty for, are there any ways that I'm undermining myself that I could change? I could change this. I also knew that I don't know if I should speak on Steve because Steve's currently in Italy, so hopefully he's happy and he doesn't mind me sharing this. And it never actually became a big problem. So I'm going to share Steve's with you. Steve, please forgive me if you don't want me to share it. He shared it before personally as well, so I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. But Steve is a photographer, my husband, and he has been doing studio lighting, more portraits, editorial type shoots over the past year and a bit, ever since the pandemic started. And he's really grown in a lot of that. And throughout that growth, we had an opportunity to kind of apply all of my understanding of the way I grew my business to him. So what took me years to learn, Steve was kind of fast tracking within that year, which was an interesting experience because I also had to remember this took me 2 years to really understand. So should it take him a day? No, I should probably give him a bit more grace than that. I struggled with that a lot. But anyway, so there was this thing that Steve would get a little bit flustered when we got to shoots, and I would say, and these were not paid shoots, these were literally shoots we had orchestrated to do virtual voyage type stuff for our reference photos for the mermaids. This is kind of earlier on days. Shoots where he was just practicing lighting with different friends, and so we would do these shoots and he would feel very flustered. And I was like, well, Steve, you want to achieve these really great shots and these great images, so you're going to have to do a bit of work before we get there. I think you're undermining your ability to succeed at this because you're failing to prepare a little bit. A lot of the time he would watch a few videos and then turn up and be like, okay, I'm ready. And then forget some of the information, or perhaps not be ready with other ideas like styling. I think he learned that it was a lot more involved than just taking the photo, that like the model had to have makeup on or have her hair done or had the wardrobe styled, even the backdrops, the lights, like everything was a bit more than he expected. And so he learned that, and it was fine. We all had grace for the learning period because our expectations were set kind of low. If you know Steve, though, he will share this with you. His expectations can sometimes be really overwhelming. He has a massive expectation for a lot of things in a lot of ways. And he also identifies that it often trips him up. Like, it often makes him feel disappointed, even when he does a good job, because he will have expected more than that. So, that's something that he works on personally. We all go through varying degrees of how much expectation is going to, stomp on you a little bit. So, in the end, we were just realizing that your ability to succeed at this is really at this point being undermined by this specific issue. You're just not preparing enough. So then he started preparing. He would make mood boards of inspiration photos. He would write down the formulas for the different the light flashes that he would need. He would also study them for a bit longer, and then he would write a timetable so that we could keep time managed better. He would also make sure that people were committed to, their styling and everything before we even got there. And he found, like, almost instantaneously that the results were so much better. Not that the photos were a lot better, but the results that he wanted, the feeling of confidence, the feeling of preparedness, the feeling of, professionalism that all comes with being prepared in that way, he suddenly felt those things. So some of those things can be fixed really, really simply with obvious fixes, but if you're not actually addressing the stuff, it doesn't get fixed. And it sounds so cliche, it sounds so weirdly obvious, but you do have to be honest with yourself. And I think even a part of Steve that maybe struggled a little bit was that he just didn't want to admit that. He didn't want to admit that he wasn't preparing, because that would make him look bad, even though he knew, I knew, sometimes the models would know, because it was all there. The proof was in the experience. You just weren't preparing. So there is like one of the examples. Thank you, Steve, for letting me share that. There is one of the examples where we applied some really quick ointment. Sometimes other people go through these journeys so that we can provide you the information a lot quicker than we had to learn it. I have struggled through a lot of this stuff for so long, and I hope that you're taking away from this today something that you can fast track that I didn't get to fast track, and I have certainly taken some things from other people, some advice from other people that I've been able to fast track through my own experience as well. So it's this very pay it forward mentality, I guess. I just want you to feel reassured that self-doubt you're having is probably bringing up a lot of feelings, I'm sure. Also, I'm not a licensed therapist. I should have said this from the beginning. So take all of this with a grain of salt. The self-doubt you're having is probably bringing up a lot of feelings, but it's also bringing up a few facts. Once we deal with some of the feelings, because that can be hard for people too, but if you can deal with a few of the feelings and set those to the side for a second, we're going to deal with the fact. What is it? And is it okay? Do I need to address that? You can't draw hands. I don't want to. Done. It's gone. There's nothing to worry about beyond that. What do I want to do now? Have a good time? Great. I've got my pens, my stickers, my books. I'm going to have a great time. Not going to draw hands at all today. Other things, I want to do this. I want to do this project. I want to achieve this. Okay, great. You're missing a few skills. Oh, am I? Yes. Do we want to get those skills today? Do we want to try some of those today? Or do we just want to recognize that and we'll deal with that when we feel ready to deal with that? Yeah, I think I like that. So let me just have fun today. Let me reset my expectations from achieving this really difficult goal to I'm just going to have fun. So that at the end of this day, I can say, well, I did achieve what I wanted to achieve, and I'm going to work on that when I want to work on that. Or you might be really motivated, really prepared to work on it instantaneously. Well, you lack the skill to be able to do that really flat watercolor blending. Okay, well, I want to be able to do that. So I'm going to do that today. Great. We'll just set our expectations for, we're going to try. So our efforts will look like we're doing trying, we're doing learning. And then when we assess them, we'll have succeeded if we just tried. So anything beyond just trying, if you get great results, great. You succeeded and you grew. I would be really shocked to know if the self-doubt would keep creeping up a lot after that. If it keeps creeping up a lot after that, I honestly don't know what to say. Because that would just throw all my logic out the window. And I don't have a personal experience like that. Usually once it's been adequately addressed, like honestly addressed, and then either worked on or let go of, and my expectations are set appropriately, I don't tend to have a lot of an issue with it. Is it inevitable? I would say so, yes, because even as you grow, some of those issues scale with you. What I once feared or once doubted about my ability 5 years ago, I don't doubt anymore. But as I grow and I set my sights a little higher, the doubt will creep back up for the new heights that I want to reach in a certain area. And I think it's always important just to acknowledge, yes, of course, acknowledge the feelings, but acknowledge the fact of it. Is there some truth to that you can deal with? Because we can deal with the truth. We certainly can't deal with pretending it's not there or lying about why it's there. Only the truth can be dealt with. So that's where I'll leave you. I think I'll leave you there. Sorry, this has been so long. I must have just enjoyed talking about that. It's a relief, honestly. It's a relief to get to a point where you're just not in kind of crippling doubt about everything. You just don't really care. You care about the things you care about, but you don't care about these pointless or like meaningless things, like you can't draw hands, or I don't know, like literally they don't really come up anymore. I don't have a ton of examples. Or maybe the doubt people are not going to join your workshops, and you're like, yeah, okay, well they might not. So my expectation is I will do a great job making a workshop that I would love to be a student of, and that is my goal. So ultimately, I know it's kind of cheating a little bit, but I set myself an expectation that only I can fail at through my own efforts. If my expectation was I want 600 people to join my course, I mean, you're really I'm setting myself up there. So I'm not going to say that. Would it be a hope? Would it be a desire? A goal maybe? Sure. But an expectation? I would steer so clear away from that, just to make sure that as I keep going, I keep enjoying it, because the more I enjoy it, the more I'm going to want to keep doing it. If I am setting myself up in patterns and routines that I don't enjoy, it will be the first sign of everything going downhill. And ultimately, it sucks. If you work in this space, it really takes a toll on the audience that watch you, because you may not feel like it, but I mean, as a viewer myself, I definitely feel when people are in their patterns of just doubt and downness, and it feels heavy on me. I just feel like, oh, and then I want to help them, but it feels inappropriate to help. So I offer whatever help I can, and then I just kind of disconnect a little bit. It can feel a lot, but ultimately the person it hurts the most is you. It hurts you the most. It hurts your ability to enjoy yourself. It really sucks for you at the desk. It can be painful for others around you, but for you, it's so sad to think that people would get to their desk with beautiful journals, beautiful art supplies, in whatever brands you have, whatever, a home brand, no frills. If you have the highest end expensive art supplies, it could be anybody, but it just sucks to think that someone would doubt, and maybe even for reasons that could be completely avoided, but would just doubt that and not start. So hopefully we've addressed enough to be able to get you started. Everything beyond that, I'm just going to wish you well with, and keep addressing it with the truth, and keep addressing that truth. It doesn't always have to be fixed today, but at least you'll know exactly what to address when you do decide to work on it. I will leave you at that. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I'll see you another time. I'll probably still be working on these journals. Let's be real. I obviously didn't set my goal to having them finished by this week. My goal set right now is just enjoy this little bit of a break while Steve's in Italy. I'm just going to have a bit of a relax. It's my birthday next week. So I'll probably see you on a live stream on my birthday, maybe. I'm planning it, but I haven't announced anything. So it might just be a spur of the moment thing, but I do just want to kind of say hello to everyone in real time. And yeah, that's all. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk about self-doubt. Remember, I am not a therapist. Not a therapist. I'm not licensed in anything. I am no one and I know nothing. So take it all with a grain of salt. But if it did help, I'm really glad. And if it didn't, hope you have a wonderful day anyway. Thank you. Bye.